Assalamualaikum girls. Today I'm going to show you how to sew this gorgeous long coat to be worn as an abaya. And I think this is a perfect time to share this tutorial because the winters are here. So you can just wear this and go outside. So let's talk about the things you're gonna need here. I used a total of 6 meter fabric to make this entire coat. And of course you would need your sewing supplies, a soft fusible interfacing, shoulder pads, buttons for the coat, and the pattern from this website. You can find the link in the description below. So now if you'd like to use 2 different colors, you can buy 4 meter of one fabric and 2 meter of the other fabric based on how you like it. And the seam allowance used for this pattern is 1/2 inch throughout. So first off, purchase the pattern and print it out. Lay them all on the floor piece and then piece them up and tape them and cut them out. And then you can just trace all the patterns onto the fabric and then you can just cut out the fabric. Do make sure that you transfer all the notches to your fabric. They look like some T marks on some of the patterns, like the sleeve pattern and the front side of the front side 2 part, I think so. So let me just show you how to transfer the notch. It's this one over here. So since my fabric is quite transparent, I can just put it on top of my pattern and mark it. As you cut, make sure that you keep checking each item from the list so that you know that you have already cut it out and you just don't end up cutting it twice. And also don't forget to label each pattern with a post-it note after cutting it out so that you can stay organized and you don't end up mixing everything. So this might take you like 7 to 8 hours, so just be prepared. Okay, now let's start with the sewing. So I'm going to start with the easiest thing first, and that's the welt piece for the pocket. Now take the 2 welts and place the right sides together. Sew all around, leaving a gap for the turning. And when you're done, you can just clip the corners. Then turn the right side out. Go ahead and press in place, and then in the end do a top stitch. If you're not familiar with what top stitching is, you can check out the link given in the description below. And also repeat this step for the other welt piece as well as the half belt. Next, take the side front 2. Place the top of your welt with the notch on the top. I have already done it for one piece, so take one of your sacks, sew it so that when you flip it to the other side, it will go to the back. So the sacking over here is upside down, so you have to switch it and then sew it. And so now I'm going to show you how to do it with the other side. Now take your side front and align the welt according to the notch Pin it and sew it. Now you have to attach the side front one to the side front two, just like I've done it over here. So place both the pieces together. The gray piece should fit inside the circular edge. So since we don't know till where we have to extend it, so it's better to start from the bottom. So start pinning from the bottom and move to the top. Keep the right sides together. And when you reach the welt piece, make sure that you don't sew over it. You have to skip it. So use a pin to mark where you have to stop sewing. Since this is a construction stitch, don't forget to backstitch every time you are stitching. And also don't forget to snip the seam so that the circular part comes out perfectly. Okay, so to sew the pocket, what we are gonna do is just gotta snip some at some places here because the circle was not smooth. So okay, now I'm gonna show you how to attach the sacking. So take one of your sacking pieces and align it so that the right side is facing the right side, and you can see that it's inside and my wrong side is towards the outside, and I am pinning it to my gray piece. It can be a bit difficult, so you just have to adjust it, or you can just hand baste it first if you want, because there are like corners in the end. towards the inside, so you can see that it has gone inside like a pocket. Next, take the other piece and sew it on the pink edge on top of your welt piece. I have already attached the sacking to my welt piece. Now I'm just gonna take this pocket towards the outside and I'm gonna sew all around it. So that's done and my pocket is ready, which is totally wrong because it's upside down. I have to fix it later. Repeat the same step for the other side so that you have two identical pieces, and press the seam allowances open. Okay, the next task is to attach the center front to the sides. Now there are two centers and we have two side fronts, so attach each one to their own piece respectively. So the side which with some extension kind of thing is gonna go towards the outer edge, and the other side is gonna remain towards the center. So just follow the video how I'm pinning over here and you'll be doing it perfectly right. Okay, now it's time for a short break. Do comment, like, and subscribe and share if you like the video, and then you can come back and continue watching the video. So now I'm showing you how to sew the pleats on the center back piece. So take your center back piece, and first I'm going to show you how to mark the pleats onto your fabric. So my fabric is quite transparent. I can just use a chalk to mark where the pleat rectangle starts. But if your fabric is dark, what you are gonna do is you can put the fabric under the paper, insert a pin on the mark, and where the pin goes through the fabric, you can put a mark with the chalk over there. So this is going to be your pleat mark. So repeat this for the other center back, because we have two center backs. Now place the two center backs together so that the pleat marks are towards the outside. place the right sides together. And I'm gonna sew it from the center. As you can see, that's gonna be my center seam, and my pleat marks are gonna be towards the outside. That's one of my pleat mark, and it's towards the outer edge, and the seam is gonna be here, and the other pleat mark is gonna be on the other side. You will understand it after I'm done sewing why it's important to keep the pleat marks towards the outside edge. Okay, so we are done here. I've already gone ahead and opened up the seams, pressed them open. So now I'm going to show you how to make the pleat. So pinch the pleat mark and bring it to the center and pin it in place. And do this for both the sides. Perfectly aligned because it's gonna show totally. And similarly repeat it for the other side. On top of that, and you can also use your center front, center back piece to make sure that you have folded it to the exact length so that it's not exceeding the sides. So you can see that it's perfectly folded, but after I finished sewing it was a bit getting out, but that doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to connect the center front top to the center front bottom straight seam, and we'll have our center back ready. Okay, so I've already pressed my seams apart. Sew the side backs together just like we did our side fronts. So take your side back 1 and side back 2 and join them together just like you did for your side front 1 and 2. Just like the previous one, you have to start pinning from the bottom. after you're done sewing the two side pieces, you can just attach it to your center back piece. Okay, so I'm all done here and I've already snipped everything and pressed the seams open. You can see it here, there are lots of snips because it's a circular kind of thing, so you need to snip it to bring it to a perfect shape. And don't forget to open up your seams. And next we are gonna work on the half belt piece. So I've already gone ahead and done everything. I've top stitched with 2 top stitches over here. And this step is totally optional. Over here I'm just gonna do a top stitch on the back of my pieces, and I'm gonna use my foot as my seam guide. You can see that the left of my foot is gonna help me to stay in line with the seam. So if you really want a pro looking result, you can just go ahead and do this. It's not really compulsory. So this is how it's gonna look from the bottom. Now it's time to attach the finished front pieces to the finished back piece. So you have 2 front pieces and 1 back piece. And first of all, align the 2 shoulders together and then align the side seam together and sew. So since it's a cotton fabric, you don't need to pin a lot, like just 2 or 3 pins are more than enough. Do this for both the pieces and you will have the basic outline of your coat ready. Okay, now the next step is to attach the half belt to the back, And for that, I'm gonna use 2 buttons. And to mark the places of the buttons, what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna pin the half belt piece in the center, perfectly centered, because it's gonna show. So you gotta be careful to make it exactly in place. Next, take your buttons and using a sharp pencil, I've left a 1 finger distance from both the sides so that they are on equal distance from both the sides. So using a sharp pencil, mark where the holes are, and you can use this as a reference when you are sewing later. And it's totally up to you if you want to hand sew it or sew it with the machine. I think with the machine it's more time saving. Okay, now comes the tricky part. So what you have to do over here is, you can see this is the shoulder seam. It's a very small seam, but you have to attach the back neck facing through the shoulders to your front band facing. So just sew a line over here. I've already done one part, as you can see. Okay, now I want to explain to you what these extensions really mean. So these are actually gonna be your collars. So when you sew them together, they're gonna come together and you have to sew it from the center and they'll form the collar of your coat. And these are gonna be sewn to your neckline, the back neckline, as you can see over here. Similarly, you're gonna have the same thing for the front band facing. It's gonna be attached to your front piece from the inside, like I've already done here. And it's gonna flip over and you're gonna sew it from the top over there. I hope that gives you some idea of what's going on over here right now so that you don't get confused. And the inner lining of the facing would be attached to the collar and it's gonna come down like this. Okay, so I have already sewn the collar piece from the middle of the back facing of both the lining and the main piece. So now you have to attach the collar to your back lining, and you can see that there are some sharp corners over here that you have to sew from. And so to make that easy, what you can do is snip these corners first. First do a stay stitch and then clip the corners so that they fit in perfectly with the neckline. This is gonna be sewn like this. Here's a closer look lots of pins over here. You can also hand baste it in place. I've already done this part over here. I'm gonna show you how to avoid the bulk from coming into your seam, coming under your machine while you're sewing it. So it should be really neat because it's gonna show from outside. So you have to be really perfect over here. It took me a couple of tries to get it perfectly right. So the trick is, first place your shoulder seam under the sewing foot and keep all the bulk, hold them together and bring everything towards the bottom, like you can see over here. So all my bulk is on one side. So I'm gonna do a straight stitch over here till I reach the corner. Let me just remove my thread so that I don't end up re-sewing over here. This is just for demonstration purpose. Okay, so go ahead like this, and when you reach the corner, lower your pin, lower your needle and then push all the bulk towards the other side, towards your left hand, and then continue on with the next seam. This way you won't have any bulk under your, bulk won't come under your stitch. And keep on sewing till you reach the other side, and similarly do the same thing over here. When you reach the corner, turn the bulk towards your left, just like that. And we are done here. Make sure you snip all the seam. So because it's a circular seam, so you need to have a perfect shape, which you can get after snipping. The next step is to put the right side of the front facing together with the right side of the front center piece. The wrong sides are out and the right sides are together. start pinning in place. Start from the center. Match the colors first. And then go to either of your sides. This is just gonna be a straight simple stitch. So after you're done, cut the corners of the collar and also snip the edges. Turn the right side out and press the seams. Do a nice press to get a nice professional look. Now it's time to sew in the buttons. So what I did was use this pocket notebook as a guide. So I placed my buttons on 4 corners of the book, which helped in knowing that my buttons were exactly the same distance apart. And then I used a sharp pencil, just like I showed you earlier. So this makes sure that the buttons are exactly the same distance, and I can repeat it for the next 4 of my buttons. So I'm going to use a sharp pencil to mark the buttonholes, and later I'm going to use this as a reference to attach my buttons to the coat. So we have 4 marks over here, similarly for the other buttons. Next, I want to show you something here. Since I'm not going to be using a lining for this coat, what I did was sew the inner back facing to the collar seam over here, so that it folds inside like this. And also for the sleeves, I just did a zigzag stitch because I won't be using any lining. In the pattern it says to attach the sleeve hem to the lining, and since I'm not going to use it, I use this option, so it's totally up to you. Okay, now it's time to sew your sleeves. Make sure that you have all your notches right. There are 2 notches on the upper sleeve and 1 notch on the bottom. So first I'm gonna place them together and do a straight stitch on the side till the vent. This part is not done, and then I'm gonna sew the other side together. And I've already gone ahead and opened up the seams and pressed them. Next, I'm gonna press the vent piece by folding it twice. So here it's all done. I folded it twice and pressed it. Okay, now you have to fold the hem inside and do a straight stitch over here. These are the sleeve cuffs. So do a straight stitch over here. Make sure that they are separate. Don't sew them together. And then do a straight stitch all around. So this is going to be your sleeve vent that you have normally for the jackets. And this is how it should look like. And now to the final part. Remember the notches that you had earlier? What you're gonna do now is do a basting stitch from that one notch till the end of the other side. And then you have to use your bobbin thread to create some gathers and make sure that there are no puckers. You just have to get like a wave-like structure to make it easy to sew the sleeve into the shoulder. And if you have any puckers, you can just ease it out. Okay, now you have to insert the sleeve into the armhole. So turn the sleeve right side out and then turn your coat wrong side out. So you have to put the sleeve inside the coat from the bottom. Now, first of all, line up the notch on the shoulder with the shoulder seam. You can see the notch over here. And you have to align it with the shoulder seam. There. And there's another notch at the bottom, which you would have seen on the lower sleeve. Align that notch to the sleeve at the side. Oh, I mean the seam at the side. So there you go, like that. Now we can start pinning the straight edges first. It's really easy because you just have to match the shape. You can see that it's perfectly fitting, so we know that we are doing it perfectly right. After you have pinned the straight edges first, then you can go ahead and start pinning the gathered part together. So if it's excess, if it's less, you can just adjust it by pulling the thread and easing out the gathers, and make sure that there are no puckers and the gathers are perfectly spread out. If you get this step perfectly right, you won't have to sew your sleeve twice or thrice. So take your time and make sure that this thing is pinned perfectly. Okay, so here it is. I have made a little blunder over here, which I'm gonna go ahead and fix. Need to use my seam ripper over here. But other than that, I think the sleeve turned out perfectly right. Okay, now I'm gonna show you how to give the 3D shape to your shoulders by pressing. So normally you would use a tailor's ham for this, but since I don't have one, I'm just gonna use a small pillow, rolled it up, and insert it into your shoulder. Now make sure that your seam is pointing towards the outer edge. So because it naturally falls that way, so make sure that it's like that, and then use a hot iron to press it in place. So this is how it would look like. You can see that it's already getting a good shoulder shape. And let me show you how to do the hem if you're not going to use the lining. So first I have already got ahead and folded the hem by 1 inch throughout. You can see here. And next what I'm gonna do is just fold it twice like this and do 2 stitches, one on top and one on bottom, like you would do for any other dress. Okay, so the coat is all ready, but I have some tips to share before I say bye. So the first thing that I want to say is that this was the first coat that I've ever made, and the pattern took me lining up the pattern, since it was a digital pattern, printing out, laying it, and taping it all together. It took me a total of 5 hours, which is quite a lot and overwhelming, but after I was done, it went quite smoothly until I had the collar problem. So I reached the collar part where I couldn't really figure out what to do with these extensions over here. You must have seen just now. So I must have sewn this part like 4 times, and at one point I was totally gonna give up, but I somehow managed to figure out how it worked. And one more thing that I realized later was that I shouldn't have used 2 different colors, because when I did the top stitch, the gray color thread was showing on the pink. So if you want to do 2 colors, make sure they're on the same, they're both dark colors. So, and one more thing, as you know, I didn't use any lining, so I just altered all those depths. So that's the end of my rant, the review. So it's totally up to you if you would like to go for a coat with the lining or without the lining. So everything is already figured out for you in this video, so you can just get the pattern and start sewing your own coat. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.